Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sreenivasan, and I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. This is our daily conversation about various aspects of COVID-19. We usually go and talk to organizations that are doing grand things around the world, and today we wanted to go a little local. We wanted to learn from the great borough of Brooklyn, right here in New York City. I am in Manhattan, and this is day number 63 of the lockdown, and this is show number 63. That means we've been live every single day of this pandemic lockdown in New York City. Amid the terrible tragedies and pain that we're seeing in America and around the world, we're trying to find hopeful stories. We're trying to see what we can learn as we will eventually come out of this crisis. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please tag us. Please share with your family and friends. Please find me and share this so that everybody can join us. And if you haven't already, please go to YouTube and become a subscriber to my free YouTube account. That way you'll know when our shows are coming up and what you're about to see as well. So thank you very much for being here and for being part of this opportunity for us to talk and have some fun on occasion. Today we're going to do both. We are going to be, our show is entitled Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and we are going to meet the co-founders of two terrific initiatives, Park Slope Together and Meals for Brooklyn Healthcare Heroes. How important are those? We're going to meet Stony and Jessica Fields in just a moment. Please tag your friends so that they can join us and participate in this conversation. We also want to give you an early alert about tomorrow's show. We have one of the best known authors in America is going to be joining us. Sapphire will be here. You know her as the author and poet whose book Push was made into the Oscar-winning film Precious. She's the author of The Kid and American Dream. You will learn a lot. You will cry perhaps, but we will all be different after visiting with Sapphire. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., same time slot, wherever you are in the world. And of course, this is recorded, so you can watch later. Please tag your friends. Please tell us where you're watching from. I want to hear from you so that we can have that global conversation. We also want to thank our sponsors, and we want to thank Muckrack Academy, introducing Muckrack's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free, on-demand, 2-hour course and certification. Please enroll today. Just take a photo of this if you want to, or grab a screenshot and go to mrac.co/media, mrac.co/media. People around the world can take it. It's free. It's about 2 hours. It's something that you can do. Everyone needs to learn the fundamentals of media relations. And even if you're an experienced media relations person, you will still benefit because you are learning how the newest, latest tricks and tips on how to do media relations. So we are almost ready for our guests. We hope you're tagging your friends and family. And I'm going to bring our guests on, give them a chance to say hello. And then we're going to go on what I call the tour around the world as we see who is watching. Tell us where you're watching from. So without further ado, please say hi to Jessica and Stony. Hi.
Hi, so nice to see you.
So great to have you both with us. You're both in Brooklyn. I'm in New York. Quick, which is the better borough?
Down Brooklyn.
How did I know you were going to say that? Come on. How did I know?
You have to.
Yeah, you have to, and I have to say Manhattan. What can I say? But just delighted that you could be with us and to hear from you, learn from you, and especially on an evening late at night. I appreciate that. We start all our shows by asking our guests, how are you doing? And how's your family and everybody close to you? So we'll start with Jessica, go to Stony, and then we'll do the tour around the world. So tell us where you're watching from. Go ahead, Jess.
We are doing great. So we're in Park Slope, Brooklyn. As you'll hear also from Stony, we actually live across the street from each other. And we have been weathering the pandemic quite well. I think mainly in part to the fact that we have done something that has really helped us to uplift our spirits, which you guys will all hear about with the fundraiser that we've created. So we are doing well. Our families, at least my family is doing fine. My kids have learned that remote learning is actually about learning how to use the remote control for the TV. And we're doing great.
I love the artwork behind you. We'll ask you about it later. And here's Sony. Hi, Sony, across the street from Jessica. How are you doing? How's your family?
Very well, thank you. The kids are hopefully settling down for the night, but I don't think that's in fact what's happening in their rooms. They're all wound up from a day of not really going outside very much, but other than that, everyone's keeping healthy. We're all well. Can't ask for much more than that.
We cannot, and we are grateful for that. Just for anyone who's curious and hasn't seen the show in a while and thinks the background looks different, there's not a virtual background. I've been kicked out of my own home. My kids and my wife said, you're doing too many live streams and you're shouting in the living room. And they arranged for me to go to our friend Rajni's home. She's not in the building, so she was kind enough to let me use it. And it looks like a perfect model apartment in our building, and that's because it is a model apartment. So thank you all for being here. We're just going to do a quick tour around the world. Sonali says hi. Hello, Sonali. Jonathan's watching from Union Square in New York. Joe Appio is watching from Georgia, in the town of Cumming, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And our friend Steve Taylor is here. Steve is part of the amazing production team that I'm working with every day. If you are looking for your own virtual event, this is the team to go to, and Steve is part of that. We call our company Digi Mentors. We convert in-person events. We make virtual events. We make your own live web show. And if you wanted that, or you want training, consulting, don't cancel your event without talking to us. Just email me, Sree@Sree.net, SREE@SREE.net. You can see my email address right on the screen. So please be in touch. Sonali says, I love helping neighbors. Used to canvass door to door, Maryland, Virginia, DC, Texas. Wow, she's moved around. Kavita says, hello. Sonali says, for Clean Water Action and Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I love do-gooders. I love activists. Thank you so much, Sonali, for doing that. And look what she's doing. She's tagging a friend. Everybody, tag a friend who should be watching this. You will learn stuff. You will also be able to share your own story. Wow, Sonali's just tagging people. And Park Slope, I live in Williamsburg, she says. So there you go. And the great Martin Englisher is watching. Martin, thank you for being here. She says, always a great show from Sree. We want you, Martin, to be on the show. Tell your family and friends. We're looking for guests. We're looking for ideas. We're looking for topics, and we're looking for sponsors. He did an amazing thing for us. We did an interview with Bill Ritter, the anchor on WABC, and Martin told Dr. Ruth that Bill was on the show, and he got her a copy of the videotape that we did, and it was just such a meaningful moment for me that the Dr. Ruth was listening and watching. Sonali says, Brooklyn in the house. Rose is here. Rose is one of our two producers of this show, and she is in the town of Milford, Connecticut. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Sorry, I should know Rose. And she's at Rose Horowitz 31, and you can follow her for live tweets from tonight, so please do that. And Sonali says, I love the movie with Oprah. Was there a movie with Oprah that has a Brooklyn connection? I don't know. We'll find out. My dad is watching from Kerala. Kerala in the house. Hello, Acha. I'm sorry that we're not together, but I love that every morning you're getting up early to see us. It's about 6:30 in the morning in India. And Sonali says, God's own country. That's what they call Kerala. Arif is watching. Thank you. Good morning. And Martin is tagging others from Riverdale, learning from Sree. Thank you so much, Marty. Rose says, so excited to hear Sapphire tomorrow. She rarely gives interviews, and Rose is going to help me with that interview. Live from Delhi is Arif. Just look at these people, just all over. Kavita is watching, and Angela is watching from Long Island in the house. Very nice. And Joe says, Mom Maria Appio is locked down in Bensonhurst, but spends her time reading the news from her mother, and by baking and cooking for neighbors. It's about a 20-minute drive from the slope. So maybe we can put that baking energy to work and help some more neighbors the way she's doing already. And we love that. And Sonali is talking about the movie Precious, and that's what she meant when she said Oprah's movie. And Sonali says, your openness and inclusion is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate that. Let's get cracking here. We are just very, very happy to have people here. Supreme Leader or Leether is watching from Kolkata. I don't think it's Kim Jong-il watching, but it could be. He was missing for a while. And Masjid's watching, or M. Sajid is watching from Saudi Arabia. Talk about a global conversation. We are so grateful to everybody for being here. And Carla is from Florida. All right, enough talking. Let's meet our guests. Let's start with Sony. Tell us about your project and how it is that you decided that you were not just going to sit out this pandemic or just survive it, you were going to help people.
So here in New York City, as you know, as I'm sure all of your viewers know as well, we were hit really hard by this pandemic. And our schools, when they finally decided to close them, we knew at that moment our life was going to be totally different. The world was just, we all had work, we all had school, we had routine, and that was going to completely change for us. So I think it was on that day, maybe the next day, Jessica, my neighbor, who you will all have the pleasure of meeting soon, she called with a very good idea, and she was like, "Hey, I've got this thought. Let's ask our friends if they can contribute some money, and let's try to pull together some meals, and we'll send them over to the hospital." And we were like, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like it'll give us something to do. It sounds like it'll help some people, and it'll make us feel productive and like we are doing something rather than just spiraling," which is kind of about what I was going to do. So we did that, and Jessica is more of the numbers person, so she'll be able to talk to you a little bit more about that. But suffice it to say, the fundraising just went out of control. Like, we just were able to collect so much. And I think the reason is because it was a really meaningful, it came in a very meaningful time. And I didn't fully understand then how difficult things were going to be economically for our communities. And this particular fundraiser did two things. It was able to help our community on an economic level by we gave all of our money back to our local restaurants. And then the second level was to give back to the hospital. And we started also this Facebook page, which is called Park Slope Together. And the goal of that Facebook page at first was just to tell people what our fundraising goals were. But what we started doing, we started telling people, "Oh, this is where we got our food from." And I'm a journalist, so I started writing up these little profiles of the people who we got food from. And those became really meaningful for me because we live in a neighborhood where you can see your neighbors and sit out on the stoop and have conversations, and you go to the coffee shop and you have more conversations. And I am very much an extroverted person. I do not like sitting at home. It is not my thing. And so now we're in a place where we can't go out. But having these conversations with the people that we were working with for our fundraiser, it was so meaningful to me to have those connections that we would normally have and put them in a space where we could build our community virtually. And so that's what we did. And the next thing you knew, our fundraiser was really picking up steam, but so was also our Facebook community. And so we were able to sort of recreate elements of our community online virtually so that we could really connect somewhere, since we couldn't do it in real life.
Thank you. That's a great way to kind of understand the project. And let's go to Jessica. We've been promised numbers, Jessica.
I don't know how I became the numbers lady, but so I think one of my favorite stories to recount, and I think in COVID-19 time, there's a different timeline that exists in the world of COVID-19. So this was only maybe 8 weeks ago, but it felt like about 5 years ago. But when we first started this project, our goal was to raise a couple $1,000s. We sent an email out to maybe 30, 40 people, hoping to just do a little trial run, see if anybody was interested in donating some money to order some meals. And, we set up a GoFundMe. I went out for a walk, come back, and we had maybe $2,500 in donations in just a matter of hours. At that point, it just sort of took off from there. We've now, about 8 weeks later, we've raised $138,000 roughly. We've provided nearly 13,000 meals that have all been ordered from local restaurants and gone to our local healthcare workers. We started with one hospital, but we've expanded to about 5 or 6 different healthcare facilities, whether it be a hospital. We have an EMS station we deliver to, nursing homes. We are expanding to as many places as we can find money to fill meals at. I believe we've spent down about maybe $115,000, $120,000, but it's been spent by giving back, like Stony said. We've been giving the money back to our community to try to help these restaurants stay afloat. And it's been very meaningful to them to have that experience.
I can totally understand how and what a difference you've made. And it's really not even about the total amount of money. It's the fact that people were willing to come out and help. And we're calling this learning together and learn neighbors helping neighbors. What's one thing you've learned, Jessica, that has surprised you about yourself or about your neighbors? One thing you mentioned already is time, right? Like it was only 2 months ago, but felt like 5 years ago. What else have you learned?
This is a very personal thing, but Stony and I, we knew each other, but not, very closely, but it's brought us together. It's brought people on our block together. The community that Stony was discussing about, Park Slope Together, our Facebook group, the number of connections and the number of the ability to really connect with your neighbors in a much more meaningful way at this point in time has been tremendous. I think it's actually what we all needed, and particularly being in a big city, it's very hard to feel like you're part of a community. And in Park Slope, we always did that well, but we did it sort of on a street level. But we can't do that today. So this has been a really incredible way of creating community at a moment that I think everybody needed it more than ever before.
Let's ask the same thing of Stony.
I think what I really learned, and what really doesn't stop surprising me, is the way the pandemic kind of unfolded. There were a lot of places in our systems, our governance systems, in every form, where we just, the ball kind of gets a little dropped. But what we have seen is that the community, like the power from neighbors and just normal people, just saying, hey, I'm just going to do a little thing. It's really propped up whole systems. We were seeing in hospitals where people couldn't get, masks. We're seeing whole teams of people, artisans who make props, for Saturday Night Live. They are now like, hey, I can make you face shields. I can make you a ventilator. You want to put up a pop-up hospital? I know how to do that. There were just all sorts of people with all sorts of skill sets just coming together and filling in where we just could not supply things. And it's really just a true inspiration.
And that's so lovely to hear. What is something that when you look back, you will really remember? What's a moment that you will never forget?
My moment happened today, as a matter of fact. So this was very well-timed interview here. I just happened to be about a block away from my house and just on the sidewalk, and somebody was walking by and we just happened upon a conversation, and it turned out that he was here from Florida as a volunteer nurse, and he has been working at our local hospital, Methodist Hospital, for the last few weeks. And I said, oh, well, you know, what department do you work in? We've been delivering meals to the hospital. And it turned out he works in the ER, and he's been receiving our meals. And we just had this great fortuitous encounter with each other, with him being the person that I've been trying to, to help and to deliver food to, and to, provide some joy and motivation in his day. And here he was on the street, just happening to run into me. Of course, running into each other 6 feet apart. But it was just it was such a beautiful moment. We actually, I was there with a business colleague of mine, and I asked him if he could just make a little video of this so that we could kind of preserve and remember the moment.
So do you have that video?
I do. I wish that I had time to sort of like make it beautiful and cut it down and turn it into something, but right now it's still sort of stuck on my phone and too big to get off.
I understand that. What about Sony?
I'm trying to think. There were a lot of these moments. I guess echoing what Jessica had said tonight, just before I got onto this call with you guys. I was just interviewing somebody for a piece that'll run on our Facebook page, and she was a nurse from Florida who came up to New York City to help. And I found her because she had posted on our Facebook page, and she had been connecting with our community, being so far away. And so talking with her tonight and just getting a moment to say, hey, thank you so much for looking out for us. And she said the same thing about us, and it was so moving.
I love that. And Haim, who's watching from Las Vegas, running into each other 6 feet apart. I like that. That's a great line, Jessica.
High five.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see who else is watching. Charu is watching from Weehawken in New Jersey. Love your daily live stream. Thank you so much. That gives me lots of energy. Victor is watching from the northeastern Indian state of Manipur. And it's the first time we've mentioned Manipur on this show, but it tells you kind of how global our conversation is. Charu says, we do a lot of grocery runs for neighbors. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. My mom's watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. You've taught me the importance of helping people, and these two ladies are helping their neighbors. We love that. Aparna says, doing something versus spiraling, whereas we're all prone to do. And Aparna is watching from LA. Aparna, great to see you. Fernando is watching from LA, and he says, this is by far one of the best things that have come out of COVID-19. Thanks, Sree and the team. Wow, that is amazing. Thank you very much. Stefan says, community and togetherness is everything. Wonderful to be here with for another all-important Sree COVID-19 call. Thank you. Worst hashtag ever, but people are still using it, so we're grateful for that. I do want to tell people about Stefan, because he has a great show every week himself, and you all should check it out. It's called the Spin It Social Hour, a discussion about photography and social media, and it's live on his Stefan Spin It Social Facebook and his Spin It Social Twitter. And this week he has another wonderful photographer, Boston-based photographer, Catherine Taylor, who's at Catherine Taylor Photo. So check out at Spin It Social and watch his show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you get a chance, you will learn a lot from that. So congrats, Stefan, on your working on something and doing that. Great. Let's see here. Stefan and Helm says hi. Tim says hello. Tim is watching from northeastern Pennsylvania. And Tom Franklin is here. I'm so excited. Tom says hello to Sony. You know Tom?
I do. We were at the record together.
Yes. So let's tell people about Tom, because he is an amazing photographer. And, you know, one of the things that we want to do in this, and why I asked you about your memories, is that we must find ways to preserve the moments that are getting us through this. Our grandchildren are going to ask us about the summer of 2020, no matter how it goes or what happens. The summer of 2020, spring of 2020 is something we'll always remember, but having mementos and keepsakes matters. And he has one of the most incredible keepsakes from 9/11, as Sony knows. We're just going to pull it up here on the screen. And that was his photograph that I'm going to show you. He's got lots of pictures, but this is the picture that you all know, taken on the pile at 9/11 on Ground Zero. And you're looking at brave firefighters as they raise a flag at Ground Zero. And Tom took this picture. And you remember this, Sony?
Yeah. That happened just before I got there, but Tom and I have worked on a number of stories afterwards, and he just does incredible work. Yeah.
And I think we've promised, I've bamboozled him into coming and joining us for a show in the future, and just watching him as he does his great work. We'll learn from him. So thank you very much, Tom. We're glad you're here. And who else is here? People are just commenting. And Tom says, I love your show. You have great guests. Yes, I'll keep putting on your colleagues, and so then you'll say nice things. That's and my mom says she's proud of me. Thank you, Amma. We're proud of you and everything that you have done for so many people. And Renee is watching, and happy 20th birthday to her twins, Rose Horowitz. As her twins have turned 20, mine are turning 17 next Saturday. And just for those of you who have children, especially young children, I think we heard they have young children. My twins were 3 yesterday, and now they're 17. That's how fast these things go. And Rose is saying thank you to Renee. And Tom says, Sony Sangha is an awesome reporter. Good times working together. Oh, I just love this. It's really cool. So let's get back to the conversation. Let's look at maybe your website or the Facebook group, and we'll start there. And you tell me, what are the things that we're looking at? You decided to introduce the administrators, and so the administrators are Sony, Jessica, and Elise and Kakachek. And so you did that. Nice photographs here. Put that. But what happens on a regular basis here? Tell us.
So it's interesting, Sree, that you had mentioned like preserving the moment, because that's kind of what we started doing. So every day at about 11 o'clock, sometimes it's a little late if I'm running a little late, but it's at 11 o'clock every day. We'll drop a story. It's usually some kind of an interview or profile. So we have interviewed so many restaurateurs, we have gotten food from for the hospital. We've interviewed the New York City Schools Chancellor. We've interviewed our assemblyman. We've interviewed our councilmen. Lots and lots of people. And what we try to do is kind of just recreate a conversation that you would have with them. And the conversations that we tend to have are more like, what do you see right now? What do you see as the challenges? Where are we going? Like just trying to orient ourselves. And in asking those questions that we just casually have, that we would have with these people if we ran across them on our stoops, let's say, we were able to see like how the federal loans program just wasn't going to cut it. We could see that because we talked to so many people from the beginning, and we could see like they don't understand what the loans are. Nobody could tell you what the loans were. We could see by interviewing our local business improvement district that that they had about one particular avenue in our neighborhood has like roughly 540 some odd stores that are part of this improvement district. And only 60 of those were open at a time. So that meant all those hundreds of others, they're not making any money. And how are they going to get out of their rent obligations? How are they going to make up that shortfall? So as we're talking to these people, just asking how the pandemic is, what's on their mind, what are they thinking about? We're starting to see that like this financial thing is going to be a big problem, and we were starting to see some of the shortcomings that they were facing. So it really, by sort of piecing together all of these little bits of information, you can kind of see a little bit where we are now and what's coming for us in the future, like what we need to be mindful of.
Thank you. Just really appreciate hearing that. Let's look at some of these stories here as well. We'll bring Jessica back into the conversation so that she can also join us. We're looking here now at a story that somebody posted on your Facebook page about the owner of iconic Grand Prospect Hall, which is a very famous place in Brooklyn. Most of us who don't live in Brooklyn know him from the very extravagant ads that they had, right? Grand Prospect Hall was a place for weddings and bar mitzvahs and things like that. And he's died from coronavirus. And so this is really the kind of local news, local curation of local news, right? Wow. Would anyone be able to recommend a brand of pulse oximeter? And every night, Mike the Piper joins the 10th Street crowd to honor our essential workers, proud to be a 10th Streeter. So these are all your neighbors in Park Slope, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's such a nice community of people that are both posting sort of like what you have up on the screen, these sort of uplifting photo of our beautiful Prospect Park. And then, very helpful, like, where can I find hand sanitizer? Does the, such and such place have it? So it's such a range from what Stony is providing in terms of incredible journalistic stories that really allow you to really get to the heart of who's in the neighborhood and feel connected to them. But then also the kind of the daily, how do I get through this pandemic kind of stuff? Like, I need flour. Where do I find flour today? Or, is such and such place open? Or, I want to buy a Mother's Day present, but I want to keep it local into the neighborhood. So, and it gives people a place to just feel that they can kind of ask those questions and talk about the issues that are very local and particular in this moment in time.
Yeah, I see so many Facebook groups trying to be like that, but you've really succeeded, and I salute you for that. Let's see who else is watching. Look at Kathleen's note. This show is a highlight of my week. Oh, thank you so much, Kathleen. What a beautiful note. And Stefan says, I'm honored to live in the same town as Tom Franklin, which is great, in Ramsey, New Jersey. And everyone, please tag your friends. Let them learn, how you can help your neighbors. And these ladies are showing us the way. And also, if you have a question for them about how they're doing this, this is a great opportunity for you to jump in and participate. We have a comment here all the way from Las Vegas. And Helm says, I sent a letter to Secretary Mnuchin warning against failure to counter this mother of all deflationary events, pandemic, and they're getting money into Wall Street's hands. They even flirt with the idea of allowing state governments to go bankrupt. People are seriously fending for themselves. And we saw in Las Vegas, do you remember the mayor said, let's open up? And then when she was asked, would she go on the casino floor? She said, no, she wouldn't.
Right.
And that's kind of, the world we're living in now. And, it's really an unfair choice to say it has to be between the cure and the disease being worse. Which is worse, the economy or the health? Both are important. And by the way, Nick Kristof has a column today. You know that 82,000 is the official count. Trump and his allies are saying that's an over count so that they can downplay this. And they're taking, as if it's something to be proud of, that it's 60,000. Like, that makes no sense. For the non-Americans, you should know that 58,000 is a number that's etched into the minds of most Americans of a certain age, because that's the number of people who died in the Vietnam War in about 12 years. And here, 58,000 died in 12 weeks. And that's the difference in this. So even if it's 58,000 or 82,000, but Nick Kristoff's column says it's 110,000, and that there's an undercount, not an overcount. And this is one of the many, many reasons why we need accurate information, and we love having journalists like Stony on our show, and it makes a difference. Helm says the thing about Vegas and all the people with addictions that aren't coping well. Yeah, lots of issues. Everything, like all the bad things that America was dealing with have been exaggerated or made even worse by what's happening with the crisis, and it's so sad to see that happen. Abhirami is watching. Thank you for doing this, Sree, logging in from Queens. Abhirami and her group of friends are doing great volunteer work for the Ganesh temple, the Hindu temple that's right there in Queens, and we're so glad to have her watching with us. And Jonathan says, undercount. We won't know the full count until the pandemic is over. I do some work out in Puerto Rico, and we've seen how the government miscounted, undercounted, as thousands of people died. It was 4,000 for a tiny island, and very, very sad. So let's, there's so many issues to cover, and we only have a few minutes. I want to ask Jessica, if I'm watching this right now and I want to help you, what can I do? And if I want to help my neighbors, what can I do? I could be somewhere in the world. What is a way to get started? Maybe we'll save the money question till I open the GoFundMe so that people can see what that address is. But in the meantime, talk to me about this.
Well, I would say, obviously you'll mention that we have a GoFundMe, but beyond that, actually, when we first got started, one of my great goals was to help people get this same concept off the ground wherever they were. And I've actually helped maybe 4 or 5 other fundraisers come get off the ground in various parts of the country. I am a real estate agent, and I'm connected to people around, other agents around the country. So was able to actually provide a little mentorship because we had already gone through creating some of the systems. So I'd say that's one thing that I think people can do with some ease, whether it's, buying meals from restaurants and going to healthcare workers, buying meals from restaurants, going to people with food insecurity. There's certainly plenty of ways to help today. You've just, so generously posted up our GoFundMe, which shows you how you can donate to our particular campaign. But I do believe that there are campaigns that are similar around the country. So if you are in a community that you feel very strongly about, I would do a quick search and see if you can find somebody that's created a similar campaign within your community. This is obviously, we are very Brooklyn focused. And we're looking to help people, both restaurants and healthcare workers within the Brooklyn area. Oh.
These numbers are kind of stunning when you look at them. How do you feel when again, it's not about the money, but come on, this is about the money you raised.
The thing that I find staggering is the number of donors. Yes, that's really the thing that I think kind of gets us every time, because there have been very few large donations. Most of the donations are under $100. We have people that have donated more than once. We send updates periodically, and so people get the update, and that inspires them to donate again. But just the fact that nearly 2,000 people have donated is pretty incredible.
Really is. Stony, what do you think?
I'm just so stunned. It's like really it's like Jessica had said earlier, we really were like, maybe we can send over a pizza, that was our goal. And we were able to just do so much more, but it wasn't just me and Jessica, it's our neighborhood. We all just came together. We just needed each other, and we're able to do this really amazing thing because our neighborhood just pulled it together.
And it's so cool that you did that. I love seeing those numbers, and I've just posted in the Facebook group the URL, but basically if you search meals for Brooklyn hospital staff, it shows up. And there are a couple of other funds with similar-ish sounding names, but definitely look for the right one. The Brooklyn hospital staff is the key. Wow, thank you guys for figuring this out. So impressed. But I want to ask each of you, we're so lucky that you're doing this and you're helping people. But do you think that there's something broken in America that hospital workers need to rely on folks like us to get them money for pizza? Like, what is wrong with this country in that sense? Let me ask you, Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, I think that both Stony and I had a moment where we couldn't believe that this was the environment that the hospital workers were working within. And frankly, when we started, we didn't really realize how bad it was in the hospital. So I definitely, I don't want to speak for Stony, but I definitely was, pretty depressed and upset about the fact that hospital workers were working such long hours and they had no food within the hospital. And it was very difficult, at least here at the beginning, with the restaurants not being as restaurants had closed. And so just going and finding food locally wasn't easy. So to think that they were working 16-hour shifts and still had no food at the end of it was very upsetting. So I don't know if it's a system that's broken, but certainly at that moment, it didn't feel like it was functioning.
Yeah, totally.
What more is there to say, right? I think she said it very, very well. Let's go to LinkedIn, where we're also live. I hope you'll each go into those places and post the link to your fundraiser so that people can see it. You can do that later. And Elise is watching in DC. Great stories. I just learned about Invisible Hands in the New York area, organized by the Yale community, and other ways neighbors are helping neighbors around the country. Hope these resources are found by zip code that are helpful. So that's great. Agefriendly.com is what she's posted a link to. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Elise. And everyone should go in and post and share, because we can all benefit from this and we can all do something. Mm-hmm. You don't have to raise $100,000, which is staggering, but there's something you can do, and something simple. So, Sony, what's a simple thing that someone can do?
There was a collection that was being taken up a little while ago. The 1199 union, which in the hospitals they do a number of things. They are in part a cleanup crew. They are in charge of a great number of things, but they were taking up a collection of just gear, like whatever clothes that you have, because at that time it was early in the pandemic process, but they didn't have gowns for their employees, so they were taking up even a collection of just discarded clothes, like your old used clothes. They were going to just give those out until proper gear could be secured. So there was, and I'm sure that there still is, just a need for stuff. Right now, I'm not sure. You should check with your local hospitals for sure. But your senior citizen communities right now, they're going to start needing a great deal of support, even just communication, even just sending emails, even just calling them. There are so many things, so many ways you can reach out that don't necessarily have to cost you anything, but just a little time and a little care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we start taking some more questions, I just want to remind everybody of our show tomorrow night. That it's actually starting at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Sorry, not 8 a.m. p.m. Eastern, I'm sorry. And it's a conversation with Sapphire, the author and poet whose book Push was made into the Oscar-winning Precious. She's also author of The Kid and American Dream, and she rarely gives interviews and certainly doesn't go on live webcasts like this. So hope everybody will tune in, 8:30 p.m. Eastern in New York City. That's tomorrow on Thursday. Of course, you can see all of this in our recording by subscribing on our YouTube channel, Sreenet, SREENET. We'd love for you to subscribe as we continue to learn from Brooklyn. My guests are Jessica Fields and Sony Sanga. Thank you both for being here and for sharing your comments and your views. Let me ask you each about your own. This is not your full-time job. You had a life before March 15th, and you still do. But let's hear from Jessica what it is you were doing. You mentioned real estate work. Tell us about your Brooklyn journey a little bit. And before that, somebody has asked me about Brooklyn and where exactly you are. So you can kind of see I'm on the Upper West Side. I'm going to just pull up a map here so we can show everybody this. And you can tell us also maybe, riff a little bit on Brooklyn and Park Slope. So we're up here on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And you can see this is Central Park. For those of you watching, Times Square is right there, right? Very famous place. And then this is Queens, and many of you know Jackson Heights and Woodside, and this is one of the most diverse places on earth. And another very diverse place is Brooklyn. Here's Bed-Stuy, and this is Park Slope, right there near Prospect Park, right? And Sunset Park. Well, you have two parks right next to each other. I didn't even look at that carefully. And then these are the famous Brooklyn, the famous bridges, right? There are 3 bridges that cross Manhattan, connect Manhattan and Brooklyn, right? The BMW, right? The Brooklyn, Manhattan, and the Williamsburg bridges. And this is Park Slope. So what should we know about Park Slope as a community? And how did you end up there? All of that. Let's hear it from our real estate expert who will know all of this.
Well, so I've been in Park Slope for about 10 years, roughly. And Park Slope is known for bordering Prospect Park, like you're showing. And it is a hill, hence the name Slope. So we are a very, I would say very tight-knit community, and very family-oriented. A lot of people move to Park Slope and start families here. So it's a fairly vibrant community, lots of kids, lots of pets, lots of people out and about that utilize our park here. Prospect Park, if you're not familiar, was designed by the same person as Central Park. And so it's a gorgeous spot, and that's where the community often comes together. Like you said, Sree, I was not always running a nonprofit, although we are not legally, I guess, a nonprofit. In my real life, I am a real estate agent. And as you can imagine, not a lot of real estate happening at the moment. So this gave me a great opportunity to fill the gap with something else. Actually, my business world is actually starting to pick up again. So now kind of re-entering the workforce, as it were. And yeah, I mean, I live in Park Slope with my husband, my 2 kids. We are huge community builders and love to be out and about, and I'm sure Stony will agree that we love sort of stoop culture, which is a whole thing in Brooklyn of sitting out on your stoop and eating your ice cream or drinking your glass of wine, and just communicating with those who walk by.
How old are the kids? Sorry, Jessica, how old are the children?
Oh, sorry, I missed that. My kids are age 6 and 9, so 1st grade and 3rd grade in school. And right now, remote learning and trying to do our best with it.
I can appreciate that. Let's go to Stony, who's going to tell us her story and also about her children.
So we moved to Park Slope also about 10 years ago, I think just a heartbeat before Jessica got here. I'll tell you how we got here. So I am married, and we were shopping for rings at a place called the Clay Pot, which is I guess a place that was pretty well known in New York City. We had come here to look for wedding bands well before children were in the picture. And we got to this neighborhood, and we had been hearing about Brooklyn and Park Slope. And when we went to this store, we were nearly like run off the sidewalks by the number of strollers. And we were like, oh my God, this place is crazy. Let's get out of here. And then some years later, we were pregnant with our first, and then a few years after that with our second. And we were at the time living up in the Bronx, and we were like, we might need to move into a different space. And we were like, what was that neighborhood with all the kids? So that's how we wound up here. We came back to Park Slope. It's like Sesame Street to me whenever I'm here. That's what it feels like. Yeah. Oh, and so that's the deal with the kids. They are 10 and 12. I have a middle schooler who will be applying to high school next year, and a fourth grader who will be applying to middle school. And when I am not doing this work, I am a journalist. I freelance, and that's about it. I cover, politics a little bit of, it's a lot of politics right now, actually.
That's great. In terms of, I think people who don't live in New York cannot appreciate what you're about to go through. You're one kid applying to middle school and another kid applying to high school. This is like almost like nowhere else on earth. Even, you have a choice between private and public schools, which they have everywhere, but the kind of competition that it takes to get into these schools, and there are so many good free public schools. By the way, we have a lot of people watching in India and in the Commonwealth, and the word public school in those countries means private school, right? Eton and Harrow and places like that are public schools, but here when we say public, we mean free government schools, and the competition to get in them is kind of crazy. So have you been like consulting all those? What are those inside schools and Chalkbeat and all of that?
All of it, but none of it matters right now because we're in this pandemic time. And so whatever rules, whatever customs, whatever policies they had, we don't know if it's going to stay or not. So I have no idea what we're going to get ourselves into. I think the only thing that makes me feel better about it is we are all equally in new territory and finding our way along. So hopefully it'll work itself out, I guess. I don't know.
I know what you mean. Helm used to live on Parkside and Ocean Avenues. Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
So let's have Jessica tell him something and make him jealous of leaving Brooklyn. What has changed since he's
well, I don't know how long it's been since he was here, but that area of the park was really transformed. Although one of our favorite things probably won't be happening this summer, but Smorgasburg it is over in that section of Prospect Park. I would love to think that they were going to bring it back this year, but I'm not sure about that.
Well, we should explain what that is. Think of a kind of food market, but just kind of on good steroids, and so many different options, and it's a play on Williamsburg and Smorgasbord, right? And it's just done really well, and kind of a highlight of the summer for a lot of people around this part of the country. And then Helm says he remembers the show Sex and the City, and Miranda, we used to say that about all mafias and strollers in Brooklyn. So, Sony, I'm sorry to say you're now part of that same mafia. And
I think all of us who watched Sex and the City back when it was on the first time can imagine that we're living in Park Slope. That is our fate.
The amount of kale that I eat now has exponentially increased by virtue of living here in Park Slope.
I'm sure it has. Do you also have like a cooperative and things like that for food? And compost? Do you have a lot of compost places?
We do, and one of the posts on our Facebook page that got a tremendous amount of attention was the fact that our compost is going to go away under this pandemic. And we are also in a time of severe budget constraints. So that was a very big issue for our neighborhood.
I can understand. And Gitesh says, hi, Sree and Sony. Gitesh and Rohi are watching from South Slope. We love Sony's stories, especially Bogota and Zatar. What are those?
Oh, so we have these two restaurants in our neighborhood. Bogota is this pan-Latin restaurant, and Jessica, wouldn't you say this is true? Like every time you go in there, it doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter how many people you've come with. It is constantly a party. It just feels like you've just walked into the middle of something. Like the music, everyone's happy, you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we did a piece on them, and they have a few restaurants here. They're all wildly popular and always crowded.
And
and
you're worried about them, right? You don't know what's going to happen to them, so that's
yeah. I mean, they are on a little bit better footing because they've been around here a little while. But we have some restaurants like Zatar, which are fairly new. That is a restaurant that is opened by, I think they were a Yemeni family. They make delicious food. It is so good. They haven't been around for all that long. And so restaurants like Zatar that are just getting started.
Yeah, it's really sad. Yeah, I know. I hear you. Sonali says that is right. Money is not the goal for many of us right now. It must be helping others. She's talking about what Jessica said earlier. And Helm's only been gone for 3 years, but he got a LOL out of you got LOL out of him. Vandana reminds us that Rose is live tweeting at Rose Horowitz 31, so everyone should check that out. Mark is watching from Durham, North Carolina, and Rohi's watching. Rohi says, hi, Sree and Sony. Love Sony's stories, and that's great. And Park Slope is awesome, says Helm, even though he's in Vegas. And it's just great to have everybody here. Mark says, I love the artwork in the background. So let's talk about that, since I also remarked on it. Let's get a one shot of Jessica Fields and have her turn around and tell us what we're looking at.
I wish that he just made a magical appearance in this broadcast here, but that's my husband's artwork. He's a professional artist. So that's one of his things, one of his large scale stencils. That's the blue tracery work that you see. Our entire house is outfitted with his artwork. So you're seeing, I was trying to find a spot that would make sense, but where maybe there wouldn't be a naked lady in the background, but but you know, that's what the inside of my house looks like.
But you're winning major props for your husband, from your husband, I hope. And tell us his name so people can look him up. And is he on Insta? Where can people find him?
He is Nicholas Papadakis, and I believe his website is nicholaspapadakis.com. I'm sure I should know that. I don't usually have to go searching for him online. So, but yes, he can be found on Instagram.
Terrific. And Stefan says, I've always loved the Park Slope community. Should have moved there years ago instead of New Jersey. I think that's fair. Lots of people would say that. And Mark says, we have great art galleries in North Carolina. Must get him to show his artwork here. How nice is that? So
we'd love it, Mark.
Yeah. So have him go into Facebook and find Mark and connect with him. And Mark is a great connector and someone who participates. It's really awesome. So we're almost out of time, and you got to go put those kids to bed or the husbands to bed. Let's start with the Sony. Tell us some things to inspire us, some things to, some final thoughts before we let you go.
We've just been so moved by all of the efforts of our community, to get together in this time. And if you can find a way of connecting to the people around you, take this opportunity to do it, because we need you. Like, we need our communities to come together now more than ever.
And Sony is on Twitter. She's Sam Sony, SAHMSONI, right?
I am.
Yes.
Come find me.
Please find her and connect with her. She's a great writer, reporter, journalist, as we heard. We're very, very grateful to you, Sony, for coming here and spending time with us. And big shout out to Rohi and Gitesh for recommending you to us. And folks, tell us tell us about your friends. Self-nominations welcome too. And let's now go to Jessica Fields.
So something to inspire people. I would say, yeah, I would reiterate what Sony said. I think people can do small gestures. We've seen how meaningful just even sending a note or just talking to somebody that you wouldn't normally talk to when you go out and you see somebody walking around in hospital scrubs, or somebody that works at a restaurant, and just ask them how they're doing, check in on them. So I think small gestures really go a long way right now, and just checking in on people.
We love that. And look, London has already found Nick's website.
Hey, thank you.
It's Nicholas Papadakis artist. Wow, was there already a nicholaspapadakis.com? So nicholaspapadakisartist.com.
Actually, Nicholas Papadakis is not, if you're going to have the last name Papadakis, Nicholas is a pretty common first name to go with it.
Right. I hear you. Like, whenever people see my name and say, oh, that's an unusual name or something like that, I say, it's like Srenivasan is like Smith over there in India. So a lot of us. And Sonali says, Nicholas sounds awesome. May buy a piece. Ooh, how is that? There you go. That's called retail sales. You just have to go one podcast to another, Jessica.
Right, exactly.
And Renee Edelman says, great show. Renee is a great friend of this show, and we're so lucky to have her and the entire community. Thank you all for watching. I'm so grateful. I'm going to say goodbye to these ladies, and they are, I believe, are still agreeing to join my spin-off show on Saturdays from noon to 2. Every Saturday, I host a radio show in New York on WBAI 99.5 FM progressive radio here in New York City, listener supported, and you can watch it anywhere in the world, WBAI.org, and it's call-in radio show. And I was telling Jessica before, you've not lived till you've been on a call-in show in New York City where they can call about anything, and they will in fact call about everything. So that's on Saturdays around the world, WBAI.org. They'll be on in the noon to 1 hour on this Saturday, if they'll still agree. Maybe they're tired of me by now, and I'll get an email saying, sorry, we have socks to rearrange on Saturday, so we're not going to be able to do that. But I'm very grateful to both of them. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else in a minute, but thank you both. We'll let you go and get back to your evenings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I had a great time. I learned so much from them. So inspiring and so many great ideas. I hope you'll be inspired to do something. You don't need to raise $100,000 to be doing meaningful work. Help a neighbor. You heard from Jessica and Sony, so many practical tips. And if you didn't get a chance to watch it from the beginning, as soon as I'm off the air, this will rerun on the channel you're watching on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please tag a friend, please share, and also please, please, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can see all 63 days of my shows, 63 days of lockdown, 63 days of shows. We've laughed, we've cried, and we have learned so much, and I'm so grateful. I promise to do the show every day as long as New York is on lockdown or until I get COVID-19, and we're continuing to fight the good fight as much as we can. And we salute our heroes, the healthcare workers, the first responders, the folks who are building the hospital facilities and maintaining them and cleaning them. And we're also grateful to the grocery workers, grocery store workers, and the delivery men and women who make this all possible. We're so grateful. And we had a bike messenger and journalist, a bike messenger who was a journalist, and a journalist and bike messenger together. Our gentleman, Kurt Boone, who came and spoke several weeks ago on the show, just as an example of heroes who've come and spoken on the show. We've had nurses on the show. We've had 18 to 20 doctors on the show. And from every one of them, we have learned so much. We want to remind you of what's coming up this week, including tomorrow's awesome show. Let's see who is, let's just give you a tour of some of the comments here. Renee says, great show, inspiring to learn what you can do at a community level. Robert Anthony, who has been on the show 3 times already. Good show. I miss eating at El Viejo Yayo on 9th Street near 5th Avenue in Park Slope. Great neighborhood. I wish I had a chance to have brought that up with our friends. And Helm says, thank you all. Jonathan says, interesting show. Thank you. He's watched for 62 days. That is an achievement. And Stefan says, what a great show, Sree. They are wonderful indeed. Jessica and Sony are awesome, and it was great to have them. Abhi Rami is with us, and Abhi says, great show. Happy to connect. Thanks for doing this. We will always do this, and we are very, very grateful. So now let me tell you about what's in store for you. On Sunday is our positivity show, and on our positivity show, we have Natalie Nixon with us. Natalie is an incredible author, speaker, strategist. Her new book is The Creativity Leap. Nat W. Nixon on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Figure8thinking.org is her company, and you will not want to miss her. You will be inspired. I did one of my first Facebook Lives with her 5 years ago, and I've never forgotten that walk we did through Central Park doing Facebook Live, and she has done so much great work since then. And then tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, meet Sapphire, the author and poet whose book Push was made into the Oscar-winning Precious. She's also the author of The Kid and the American Dream, and we have a quote from Sapphire to give you a sense of her work. I have brought into the public eye women who've been marginalized by sexual abuse, poverty, and their blackness. Through art, I have sought to center them in the world. The poet and author of Push, the movie Precious, is based on this novel. What a important quote, and what a powerful voice that she has given to so many women in this country who've been marginalized, as she says, by sexual abuse, poverty, and being Black in America, and so relevant to the conversation we're having, the horrifying situation where states that are 14% Black, 15% Black, are 40 to 50% of the victims are African American. Just unacceptable on every level. And some of you know that we did on a previous show with Robert Anthony, we looked at a story by Adam Server of The Atlantic, who says that as soon as President Trump realized that most of the people who are dying are African American and minorities and immigrants, he decided they don't matter anymore. And that's why the crisis stopped being a crisis, and why it's all about reopening America right now. No other country are there masked protesters with guns going into state capitals. Not a single country in the world are they doing that. Everyone has been troubled by the economic situation in those countries, but nowhere except America is that possible. And that's a tragedy and a conversation for another day. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Please email me. You have my email address. We're looking for guests. We're looking for speakers. We're looking for sponsors. And if you would like to be a sponsor, just email me, and we have very, very good rates. And if you like what you saw here, if you would like to have your own show like this, it's so easy. Please go to, you just email me, Sree@Sree.net, and we'll tell you how to make an in-person event into a virtual event, how to have your own live web show, or you want some training or consulting. We have an amazing team doing amazing work every day. We've got a conference coming up for 50,000 teachers coming up on May 30th from around the world. We just finished a conference for Princeton, and we have a bunch of very exciting, important things coming. So if any of this interests you, contact me. My motto is, don't cancel your conference without talking to me. Email me, Sree@Sree.net, SREE@SREE.net. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And one final way to get in touch and keep in touch is this. What you're looking at is our WhatsApp alert. It is not a WhatsApp group. You know that WhatsApp is filled, some groups are filled with problematic information and racist uncles. And this is not a group. All is this is an alert. Every time I'm live, you will hear from me and you can watch. So if you have a phone right now that has if you have an iPhone, just point the camera at this. And if you have an Android, you just get the QR code off the Google app or another app, and you can join us. So I'm going to say goodbye and say thank you all for being here and for being part of our family of folks around the world who are learning together and sharing together. Thanks very much, everybody. See you tomorrow for Sapphire, live or later, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Sree Sreenivasan saying goodbye, and thank you, thank you, thank you.